this. Wonderful. So hello, everyone. My name is Melissa, and I am here to present the work that I do with Dr. Flake on how using motivation assessments as a teaching tool in an introductory undergraduate statistics course can be helpful for both students and teacher alike. So the beginning here, we've heard a lot about this already, but as you may all know, motivation plays a crucial role in academic success. The more motivated students are, the better they do. And that's true for elementary, high school, and university students. What we know from longitudinal studies in motivation is that motivation tends to decrease over time, and that students' early motivation at the beginning of their undergraduate program is a strong predictor of their academic commitment and application in later years and plays a key role in degree attainment. So it's not surprising that fostering motivation in students is an important aspect of teaching, especially in introductory university courses, such as introductory statistics classes. And this is why we designed the introductory stats class that we were teaching with motivation in mind. So motivation in undergraduate statistics class has been talked about recently. So it's not surprising when I say that research demonstrates that psychology majors' attitude towards statistics are quite negative. Students report high levels of anxiety, low intrinsic motivation towards statistics. But, students may also show that they do not expect to do as well in their class. So psychology majors are often less likely to have strong mathematical background, which, that's being said compared to other students in STEM disciplines, which often result in psychology majors, especially those coming in to do a Bachelor of Art, doubting in their ability and skills to do well in this course. Psychology majors may also struggle to understand the value in learning statistics for their professional needs, and we got a good sense of that from Marlena just earlier on today. So there's actually a study that showed that upon enrollment, about 40% of psychology majors were actually unaware that their degree required them to take a statistics course. So sometimes they walk in and they say they want to be in psychology just to help people and deal with people, and they don't want to see numbers anywhere. So taken together, often what we see are our students with high anxiety level, low expectancy to do well in the course, and they likely have difficulty seeing the value in learning statistics, all of which are contributing to poor motivation within the course. But undergraduate statistics courses are not only difficult and challenging for students, they can be quite challenging to teach as well, which is why we have a whole conference today about it. So instructors face the challenging task of having to teach a course where students often come in with lower motivation and increased anxiety. And despite knowing that we should reduce their anxiety and increase their motivation, instructors have very little practical guidance on how to meet those goals. And that is especially true in large format classes, which unfortunately for us, undergraduate statistics are often taught in this large format courses where there's a high ratio, there's a high student to teacher ratio. And that comes with its own set of challenges, which are things like it makes it very hard to give and provide feedback in a timely manner to our students. It's really hard to monitor our students' engagement in the course and also to monitor how well they are doing and understanding the material that's being taught. And there's a lot less opportunity for one-on-one support, especially for those students who may be feeling quite anxious and might just need that extra help. And this is especially seen now with everything being online, where students are kind of reduced to a face in the crowd. So with all of that in mind, Dr. Flake and I, in an attempt to merge our understanding of the importance of motivation and the challenges associated with teaching undergraduate statistics, we decided to use the introductory stats course that we were teaching as a case study to determine how we could monitor our students' motivation within the class and how to do that in such a way that would inform our teaching. So what we did is that we supplemented the traditional academic assessments like homework and tests with a motivation check-in at different time points throughout the course. And this provided us with information on how our students were doing, but also so much more. So today I'm going to share with you our experience of using motivation assessment as a teaching tool. So I'll tell you more about the questionnaire that we use to measure motivation, how we implemented it in the design of our course, and then some of the information that we got from using this questionnaire. So just as a disclaimer, this is a case study. We don't expect that our data replicates to all introductory statistics class. We only present data here to illustrate some of the points of how we use the information we gathered from our student to change our teaching. So we just hope that this serves as a starting point for improving course design and teaching. So the questionnaire that we use was the expectancy value value cost questionnaire. So this builds on Eccles and All's expectancy value framework. Eccles and Wakefield are well known into the achievement motivation field, and their work has been well supported over the years, which is why we're using it. And the framework describes achievement motivation as a function of one's expectancy for success. So how well the student expects to do in the class, their subjective value for the class, so how important and useful the student believe the course is to them, and subjective cost, so how much the student will have to give up in order to be successful in the class. And cost here includes the perceived effort, sacrifice, and also the psychological toll of engaging in the course. So this is where we would measure those anxiety levels as well. So in general, when we talk about high motivation within this framework, what we want to see is high level of expectancy and value and low level of cost. So the questionnaire here contained 24 items, and we administered it online using Qualtrics at 4 different time points during the course. So this is just a representation of how, of when we administered the questionnaires within our course. So it was really important for us to get information at the beginning of the course to see what was their initial levels of motivation. And then we also wanted to gather information about a few weeks prior and a few weeks after a key assessment component within the course, so the midterm, and then at the end of the course. So we wanted to see, to measure motivations here. So this was just a 1 semester, 15 weeks class. And what we did in particular in our class is that we made the motivation assessment a mandatory part of the course. So as long as students filled out the questionnaire, it didn't matter what they said, they got this 5%. So the motivation assessment were part of the final grade that student got. And just to give you a little bit more context, this course occurred pre-COVID. So we met students once a week for 3 hours. That was our lecture time, and our enrollment was about 190 students. So obviously this is how we decided to implement the motivation assessment into our course. There's many different ways to do this, and I'm happy to discuss what Dr. Flake and I had thought about when we decided to do it this way later on. So here is what we learned from simply implementing this motivation assessment at 4 time points in our class. So first of all, we really wanted to look at the initial level of motivation in our students, because we wanted to see if what the research was saying about the anxiety and the low motivation was true, and also to see if the anecdotes that we had heard from other instructors were accurate about how students just come in dreading to learn about statistics, or whether that was just a very loud but minor proportion of our students. And what we found was that in terms of mean responses on expectancy item, which reflect how well students expect to do in their statistics course, what we saw was that most of our students actually came in with the attitude that they expected to do well in statistics, which stood in contrast to what the research was saying. And then we found similar results in terms of value. So the majority of our students were coming in saying that they think statistics is useful to them and that they value learning statistics. With regards to cost, which as a reminder encompasses this level of anxiety and stressful, but also the effort and the sacrifice students think they have to put in order to do well in the class, what we saw was that they came in with some moderate level of cost. So again, less than we expected, but there was quite a bit of variability here. So we had some students who believed that the class would require too much effort and that it will be too stressful, while at other times we found students that disagreed with those statements. But overall, just taking a look at the initial motivation in our students made us realize that students are more motivated than we expected and what the literature told us. And that had a positive impact on the instructors' attitudes towards teaching the course. So this actually motivated us to keep their motivation high. And we did that by focusing our energy on maintaining this high level of value. So the fact that they thought that statistics was important to them was important for us to maintain. So what we decided to do was that at the beginning of each of our course, we had this component called Statistics in the News, where we had students come in. Students send us news clips of things they were interested in, where we could talk about the statistics, or we ourselves just decided to bring our own statistics that we saw in the news that matched with the content of the class. The other thing we did to maintain our students' motivation is really keep looking at the cost level in our class, since that was the most variable, and try to focus on helping reduce that cost and anxiety. And what we did mostly was we made it very clear to students that we were here to support them. We told students explicitly where they could get additional resources to help them do more practice problems. It gave them office hours and things like that. So the great things about having to teach statistics and gathering data on your students is that you can use this data to teach statistical concepts. So it's quite relevant. So for example, we use the early motivation assessment responses to demonstrate the concept of histogram and descriptive statistics in our class. So we have this data readily available to use as example, which is great, but it also shows students that we care about their feedback and that we take it seriously because we take the time to analyze it. So what we did in our class is basically just show the results on the screen and then also explain what a histogram was. But we also took the time to tell them that if they were part of this group of students who did not expect to do well in the course, that there were all these other resources available for them and that we were here to help them. So again, taking all the opportunities that we could to show that we were here to support them. By using the data from the motivation assessment and pairing that with the students' performance, that gave us kind of a snapshot of how our students were doing in the course, which in turn allowed us to adjust our teaching accordingly. So for example, when we administered the second motivation questionnaire during the 6th week of the class, we noticed a dip in motivation, which was shown in an increase in students' reported level of cost. And when we paired that with the dip in students' performance on our weekly homework, we realized that maybe the material that was covered in week 6 needed to be revisited. So what we did is we told our students that we heard their feedback and that we were going to go back over this material instead of continuing on with the course. And this led to hearing an audible sigh of relief in our class. So student actually felt heard, which created a supportive learning environment, which in turn encouraged students to give us more feedback about what they were understanding in the class or where they may need more help. So this created this two-way feedback loop where both students and teacher benefited from it. And this two-way feedback system was fantastic because in turn, students felt encouraged to give us feedback, and the feedback helped us better our teaching and adapt our teaching to our students' needs. And this created this very supportive and positive learning environment, which research has shown is very beneficial for student success, but also can help reduce anxiety and increase motivation. And we were able to see this in our students' open-ended feedback at the end of the course. So when we asked students what they enjoyed the most about the course, these are some of the samples we got. So students often stated how they felt that the professor cared about them and wanted them to succeed, so feeling very supported. And we even have this great one here that says they felt that it was a very positive learning environment. So these are just a few examples of the many comments that we got from our students. So in the end, by simply implementing a motivation assessment in our class, we were able to get more information about how our students were doing and inform our own teaching along the way. The motivation assessment was relatively simple to implement in the course design. Obviously, we did it a certain way, but it didn't require too much effort, additional effort in the designing of our class. And this motivation assessment allowed us to monitor our students' motivation and adapt our teaching accordingly, which in turn created this very positive and supportive learning environment. And by designing our class with motivation in mind, we were able to reduce the fail, withdraw, and drop rate. So in our class, this FWD rate was about 11%. And that stands in great contrast of the typical 30 to 70% FWD rate that we see in most gatekeeper courses, which statistics is one of these classes. So I hope I've at least intrigued you in considering potentially the use of motivation assessment as a teaching tool within your own classroom.